Now I want to talk about safety, okay? Let's talk about safety. By ordering this, on the website, you have to check a box. And if you read it, behind that is a hold harmless agreement. What that means is that you're accepting that, this is dangerous. Anytime you use a boat, it's dangerous. All right, now, is there more danger in some than others? Definitely. This is what I want you to understand, is that the reason that you have these replacements is because just like when you purchase your inflatable boat, you get a repair kit, a patch. Have you ever patched it on the side of the road? I have. It's not fun, But what I'm trying to say is these replacements and the emergency repair tubes are like the patch for your boat, and that's the safety that I'm talking about. So this is why I speak of purchasing more than you actually need. And at first, especially if you're a cruiser and you're wanting to fix one chamber, please don't just purchase one. Purchase a couple, purchase three that not only fix the one that you want to, but it can fit the other side and then have another repair kit just in case. So now you have extras. Why? Because you're a cruiser and you use your dinghy every day. Now, if you're the weekend joyrider and you have an old inflatable in the garage and you want to fix it, it's not a problem. You can just order one. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd order one and at least another heavy-duty repair, because then you have something to repair it at hand, close by. And that's where these systems come in and why we offer packages. The further away you are from civilization, the more spares you carry on board or with you, okay? And the hold harmless agreement, what it's mainly about is I don't want some, there's always one. They'll find some old boat at an auction. They'll try it once. They'll try and install InFlataSaver. They'll fail. They give up before they even tried. And then they want to sue me for the full value of some old boat that they bought at auction. I've seen it. I've done it. It's 1 in 1,000. But the hold harmless agreement is just something that has to be seen so that you understand that, this can be serious. Mother Nature is serious. And the further you are away from society and help, the more serious it becomes. So after that, now I'm going to move on to the parts, the individual parts, what they do. I'm going to explain a little bit of the features about them and how it all goes together. So the first part we'll start right at the top, just like when we manufactured them, is the cap. Okay, like I was talking about the American Boat and Yacht Council, they're the ones that give recommendations. You have to have some kind of cap that is a secondary seal in case the valve fails. That's not a recommendation, that's a requirement by the ABYC. Another requirement is that it has a string or some kind of means to keep it from getting lost. So this string is what you'll tie to the lock ring before you bolt it all together. You put the string in, tie the end, pull it tight, now you're ready to do it. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, the cap has a washer included. It should look like a dome, and that means that it's tucked in there nicely, and it'll give you a good seal when you screw it on. Okay? Now let's talk about the actual valve. This is what we call the mill valve body. It just goes by the name that we named it in the CAD that I used. It's what holds the valve. It's a rigid air valve. That's the red part here and there. It has a washer inside and also a 3/16 stainless steel passivated spring. It's a really heavy duty spring. You'll be able to see it. It won't rust out because it's 316 impassivated. So it's, the best you can get right now. Now also, the way the valve works is if you see the little indentations on top, you can use a flathead screwdriver or coin, even your finger. But if you put a coin in and turn it a half a turn or a quarter of a turn, I'm sorry, it locks the valve open so that you can either inflate it or deflate it without having to fight the spring pressure. So when you're inflating the boat, what you do is you unlock the valve, you inflate it till it's as tight as you can, then you undo it, and if need be, you give it a couple more pumps with your foot or hand pump, and now you're up to pressure, and you're not fighting the valve the whole time, because then it makes it a lot harder and longer to inflate. So always remember, you just push it in, turn it a little bit counterclockwise, and you'll feel it lock open, and that's how it works. Okay, this is the middle valve body. You put a couple of washers and the inner tube between it, and that screws on to what we call the receiver body. And if you notice the receiver body on the outside, it has these three little what we call ramps. Okay, it's almost like a screw. It's like a little ramp. And what those do is when you bolt it in to the boat, the part that bolts into the boat, that's what we call the lock. That allows you to lock it in almost like a screw. Now, what your goal is the lock on here, and I talk about lock and things like that, but what the lock is I talk about starting at the beginning, and that's where you should, because 9 out of 10 times you're going to have one layer where you cut. It's not going to be super thick. So you're going to start right here in the beginning of what I call the lock or the ramp. Okay? That's on the left hand side. And the more you turn it counterclockwise, the tighter it gets. Now this is tightened all the way. There's nothing in between it. So you see it's just barely going. But when there's material there, that will determine where this ends up being tight. Right? So sometimes it'll just be at the beginning most of the time. Now if you have really thick material or a bigger boat with even thicker material, it might be up here on the top. But what you got to realize also is that the lock ring, the part on the top that allows you to lock it, right? It has 3 little locking tabs. They're the same angle, and they work with the ramps, right? So what these do is these allow it to lock into the inner body. These are the 2 that bolt on the hull, see? Now, the inner body goes inside. It's got the studs. They're M5 with an 8mm serrated, flanged face, and those allow it to tighten on and hold without slipping or coming off. So it's basically like a built-in lock washer. All right. Now the size is actually 8mm, and the reason we use the millimeter is because it's much easier for people in Europe to get millimeter. It's much easier for us to get millimeter. They cannot get SEA threads in Europe. It's very hard for them to get SEA threads, in Europe, Australia, stuff like that. So that's why we use the millimeter. And anyway, you can not only use an 8mm wrench, but you can use a 5/16 wrench or socket also. Now, when we're talking about these studs, they're pressed in to the inner body. You want to make sure that you tighten them fully, but you don't over tighten them. Now, when you're tightening this on the boat, the first thing that we recommend for the first time is that you actually slide the inner tube in this. You'll start with it coming at the inner tube where the studs are coming up the inner tube, and then it'll pop in like that. I can show it to you real quick. Here, let me just show you. because that's one of the things that people didn't see on the video. Alright, now what you do is when you're inserting it, you kind of massage right next to the valve. You pull it easily, right? You put your hand right there. Now you see them? Then you take the inner body, the studs coming at you, and you slide it down. You make sure it doesn't touch the studs, right? You're almost all the way down. And then what you do is you work one side in first. You kind of give it a little tuck and push it in, right? And then you push the other side and boom, now you're in and you're ready to go. See, that's that simple. That's the only one of the only things that the video didn't show. And you could see that you could do it before or after, but it's much easier to put this inside the boat through the big hole, and then you can kind of feel in there before you bolt this on. You feel in there and make sure that it's all straight and going right way, and there's no there's no twists or anything. And then you bolt it onto the boat by pulling this up and locking on the lock ring. Alright? So that's how that works. Now, let's talk about the lock ring. When 90%, 95% of the people do it, they're going to have the little 3 tabs. If you feel them, on one side they go up, and on the other side they go down. Well, like I said, 95, 9 out of 10 people, 95 out of 100 are going to have it bolted down with the tabs sticking up, right? And that is the smallest amount of lock to begin with. Now, if your material's very, very thick, right, or if you put it in a spot where it's a double layer of material, you might have to turn it over because it won't lock. It's so thick that the ramps go all the way past. That's when you'll flip it over and bolt it on the other way. Okay? Now when you're doing it, the main thing is to go ahead and get it inflated, to get it all in there. You can always come back and change all this afterwards. So it's not really a big deal. I'll show you another video where I'm just going to do it and show it step by step, and then at the end I'm going to just tie it on. But like I said, 9 out of 10 times you're going to have the cap going up just like the strap, the tabs. You'll tie your string as close to the end as you can. If you don't get very close, you can always snip it off. But I'm pretty close, so then you would just pull that down, and then when you're ready to bolt it onto the boat, you would bolt it onto the boat with this part, But this will be inside the boat. You pull this up through the holes, and then you would bolt it on like that. Now, when you put it in the hole, you're going to have the lines and the numbers on it. See? The lines and the numbers are going to give you the dimension, the length on that side of the valve, and the line is going to be in line with the tube, so that once you install it, you don't lose which way is up or down. That's why we're writing it on there in the beginning. If you want, you can always make it prettier, or you can take it off with some, fingernail polish, acetone, whatever. These valves are basically Delrin. It's generic Delrin. So it's the same thing as starboard with a little bit less Teflon. So, but that's what it is, alright? That's how it works. And that's how like I said, 9 out of 10 times you're going to have the tabs going up. And don't worry if you make a mistake, because you can always change it later. It's not a big deal. Alright, now we're going to have 2 tools. Also, if you buy a package, these will come with the package, but we'll also offer them, each. I think we're going to do the file for $2 and this for like $6. It covers the cost of the parts. But anyway, we're going to offer the file. It's going to come with a package. That's what you'll poke the holes in your tube for these holes, the studs, okay? And then the air tool, what it allows you to do, is we had a couple questions about this, that it was hard for people to fill up you know, the valve. Now, on my old boat, I used this pump, you know, a double act. Most people have this pump, right? All it is some simple water hose. It fits the valve perfectly. That's why I made it that size. It's the exact size that my Achilles was. This is what I used to pump up my Achilles. This is the size of the mill valve body. You see that? So that would allow you to pump that up. Now, the reason it's that size is I just made it the same size as the Achilles because it was a convenient size. It's the size that, you know, that I had. So I thought it would be similar to other boats. Now, even still, there's so many different pumps and adapters out there. What I've come up with is what we're going to call the air fill tool. Okay? And what it is, it's a cap that you screw on, and it's got a female 1/2-inch national pipe thread. So it's got pipe threads that you can go to the store, Home Depot, wherever, whatever hardware store, and buy any adapter you would like. Okay? 1/2-inch to 1/2-inch, 1/2-inch to 3/4 is going to be 90% of all the sizes, probably 100%. It's either going to be 3/4 or 1/2-inch. There might be some odd ones out there, metric, whatever, but this is going to allow you to get just about any size you need. Okay? And then what that is when you screw it in all the way, it allows you to pump it up. And when you unscrew it, before you release it, it's already released. So it makes it really easy to pump it up without having to worry about the valve and the spring, because it opens up the spring for you. So that's why we came up with this. It's an easy fix. Once we get going, I'll make a plastic version, you know, with $20,000 molds. It's not a big deal, but that's what I came up with right now. And the reason why is because I don't want anybody to have problems with filling or releasing the air on this system. So those are all your tools. That's all your parts. And look out for our next video.